Hi, good evening, everyone. So welcome to this live session on which we planned for discussing the questions on mock. How many of you were able to try it out? Can you just raise your hands? It will help us get a better idea of what we are looking at. Yeah. Okay. Only 2 people, is it? Okay, fine. Okay, Sandeep. Okay, 4. Okay. Okay, fine, sure. Okay, you can now lower your hands. Thank you. So we'll start the discussions with the mock questions, okay? And after that, we will do something. Is this visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, does anyone want to attempt this question? When people are seeing it for the first time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, please give some time. We'll attempt.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Let me know if you want to see the options. Yeah. Anybody wants to try?
May I?
Yeah. Please. Just give your name and.
Ahmed, Afnan Ahmed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So in this definition, the child class definition, we can see that F class is being extended, right?
Yeah. Right.
So therefore, it requires an abstract signature. Since we can only extend abstract classes, so it requires.
True. That's not true, right?
Not only abstract, but implemented classes also we can extend. But since the other S class is being implemented, so that will be interface. And F class would be an abstract class.
Yeah, so you can basically extend only classes, not interfaces, right?
Interface, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So what should be the answer?
So actually, according to the options that are there, I chose abstract class for F class and interface for S class.
Okay.
Is it all right?
Yeah, the second option.
The second,
right?
yeah, exactly. The second option.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So the idea is like you see, let me just, okay. You can see an extends F class here. So this has to be a class. And because it has at least one abstract method, this has to be a abstract class, right? Is this clear for everyone? Okay, now you have an implements, implements S class. So you have an interface, right? So is it okay to have an abstract method inside interface?
Yes, ma'am, because if we don't specify anything, it will be by default abstract.
Correct. So it is okay even if you specify it or even if you don't specify it, right? If you don't specify it, by default, it will be prepended. Otherwise, it will just accept with the keyword abstract. Okay. So this is very much okay. So this will be an interface because it's implementing S class, and F class will be an abstract class due to 2 reasons. One is child class is extending it, therefore it is a class, and it has an abstract method inside it, so it has to be an abstract class. I hope it is clear. Okay. So it's a very straightforward, easy question. Okay. Now the second question. Okay. Has anyone attempted this? This is a little tricky, but not difficult at all. You can give it a try. If you want me to, okay, I'll just reduce the, so you can see the options also. Can everyone see?
Yes, up to that low, high, low.
Yeah, low, high, high, low. That is the output, okay? Low, double high, then low. I'll write the output somewhere else. I think that is better. Okay. Now you can see the question, right? Question clearly, right? So what it is asking is, what is the output is low, high, high, and low. If this is the output, what should be there in this blank? This first one, right? The if this one and this one, line 1 and line 2. That's the question. Do you want, okay, so, okay, you can just think about it for a minute. Then okay. Now, I would say that you can have a look at the options also. This will actually give you a better idea. Okay. So I think I don't have an option other than reducing the size if you want to see the full code plus the options. Does anyone want to give a try? Just try it out. I know
Yes,
it's not. Yeah.
First, line 1 will be
Name,
not of.
name.
Sorry, my name is Rahul.
Yeah, Rahul.
Yeah. First one should be a note of f dot is fossil fuel type, and then second one should be e dot max mileage f type I.
Yeah. Do you want to tell me how you figured it out? Like
because in the array, first we check for mistakes, and assuming there's no mistakes here, we check first of all biodiesel, diesel, petrol, and steam. To get that one, we need a not logic in the if statement to get the low in the other places, biodiesel and steam, and a false, to get the high, we need to note the false. So we need to use a note in front of that function, that if is fossil fuels. And for the second one, we just need to directly print high and low using that println. So we can just directly input the function like a max mileage function.
Got it. Yes. So the idea that you want to look at here is, see, what do you want to get? You want to get low, high, high, and low, right? What are the inputs corresponding to this? For low, it is going to be biodiesel. For high, it is going to be diesel. For high, it is going to be petrol. And for low, it is going to be steam. I hope you get where I'm taking it from, right? This is the F type of 0. F type of 1 from this array is what I'm taking, okay? And that is what is going inside this, because I is going there, no? So that is what is going inside the system dot. How do you know that that is going inside the system dot out dot println? Let us look at the options. So as Rahul said, we just do a quick scan if there is any compilation error. If we are not finding any compilation errors. Now we look at the three options remaining, right? So the second line options are given here. So as I always keep telling you, the function execution starts from here. So we have to figure out, it may be a good idea to figure out what has to go into line 2 first and then come to line 1. Okay. So what has to go into line 2? Here you have three options, right? The last one we have ruled out because we see that there are no compilation errors. You can just do another detailed examination if you want after the session. Now there are two options possible, like these two are same, right? These two are same. So two options possible are E dot max mileage F type of I and E dot is fossil fuel F type of I. So one thing you have to see is E is an object of engine, right? E is an object of engine. So is there a method called E is fossil fuel inside the class engine? Let us see. So you have class here. Now this is the engine class. Engine class has a private class named fuel as a member and it has a public method called max mileage as a member. So where is this is fossil fuel method is a public method inside the fuel class, not inside the engine class. So you cannot call is fossil fuel. Okay. So this is also a wrong option. You cannot call is fossil fuel. This is not possible. So the only two options are these two. So we have figured out the correct answer for line 2 must be this option only. So let us write it here. Max mileage, sorry, this should be small m. Okay. Max mileage F type of I type. Okay. Now what happens? Let us see. Now we are in a comfortable position in the sense that we know where to go and look for, right? So you see the E, and for inside E, we said that there is a public function, right? Which is max mileage. Let us see what it is taking as argument. Again, it is taking the fuel type as argument, which we are passing here. So the first time we are passing the biodiesel, right? It goes here as biodiesel. Now it is creating an object of the fuel class, which is a private class inside the engine. The engine has, this is a has a relationship, right? Engine has fuel, right? And this is the max mileage of an engine. You want to, this is a function that will return the max mileage, whether it is higher or lower. So if it is a fossil fuel, it returns high is what we want, but how do you arrive at that? Okay. So fuel F equal to new fuel, you have created an object of the fuel class. Now you want to do something with this fuel type such that for biodiesel, you will get a low value. For biodiesel, you should get a low value because that is what we have mapped here, right? For F type I, we are getting the print as the output as low. So for biodiesel, we should get a low. So when something inside this becomes true, it is going to return a true. Whatever is inside here has to be true. So let us see the only other function. So now we have an object here and we want to see, we want to relate the whatever we have gotten, the biodiesel, the diesel, petrol, that to this output, right? So let us see the only other method that we have here is this is fossil fuel, right? So we try, we know the method is F dot is fossil fuel is what we are going to call. Okay. Now we reach here and we come here. Now what happens? It says if it is petrol or diesel is when it is called a fossil fuel. Is it a fossil fuel? Yes, it returns a true when it is either a petrol, when the fuel type is either petrol or diesel. So it returns a true, whatever function is here, it returns a true when it is a fossil fuel. So what we want is the negation of that. And that is why we put a dot F dot, sorry, exclamation F dot is fossil fuel. Okay. Now there is one more option. Let us see what is the other option. Okay. So this is the not option that I was mentioning about. You have to put a dot here because here you are expecting a low, but is fossil fuel will return a true only for petrol and diesel, whereas for biodiesel it is low and for diesel it is high. So we have to do a exclamation, which is the not of whatever you are getting here, right? So that is the option that we are going to choose here. Okay, there is another way to look at it. So let us confirm that the first one also is not a correct answer. So how do you do that? You are looking at, say, F dot is fossil fuel, F dot I fuel type. So what is F dot I fuel type? You see that there is an instance variable for the private class fuel. So I underscore fuel type has never been initialized in this code, right? As you can see, this fuel type is an argument which comes to this method. Let me change the color. So this, whatever coming here, right, this fuel type, this is actually, you are just passing it as a parameter to this. If inside this, you have calling this is fuel and you're passing it. You have never initialized this variable. So whenever you check this if condition for is fuel type, right? So suppose you are passing I underscore fuel type here, okay? So that is actually going to come here, right? Now I underscore fuel type is coming here, but as you see, I underscore fuel type has never been initialized. So it will always return false. If it always returns false, then this function will always return high. whatever be the input, it whether for biodiesel or diesel or petrol or steam or whatever, it will always return high, and therefore the output that you will get will be all high. Okay, all 4 will be high. Little tricky, but definitely you can figure it out. Okay. Anybody has any questions?
Ma'am, hello,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. Can you name your
Ma'am, what you say, ma'am, Dibindu?
Dibyendu, yeah.
What you said at the last moment, can you repeat again?
The I underscore fuel type
all,
option, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
All becoming
high option out.
Yeah. Just one
Yes,
second.
ma'am.
Okay, just 1 second. Just give me a second, okay? Okay. So what is the first option that we have? F dot is fossil fuel. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. So F dot is fossil fuel, F dot I underscore fuel type, right? So let me just write it here. F dot is fossil fuel. In bracket, you have F dot I underscore fuel type. So where is this variable?
This is under private class fuel.
This one, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what will be the value of that when you pass it as an argument here? You're going to call this here, right? So this is going as a parameter here, right? Correct?
Right, ma'am.
So what is the value of I underscore fuel type?
It should be null.
Yeah, you have never initialized it, no?
Right, ma'am.
Yeah. So if it checks for fuel type equal to petrol or diesel, it is not correct. So it does not go to this part. It will always go to this false part. For all the input like biodiesel or diesel or petrol or steam, this is null. Whatever value is coming here is null, right? So it will always go to this false. Okay. And because it goes to false, what have we set here?
It is always returned high.
It will always return
right.
high.
Yes.
What it no?
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Understood.
Okay. Anybody has any questions? Okay. Yeah, this is again a very simple question. Anybody wants to give it a try? It's not difficult at all. If you know the concept, you can answer in a minute. Yeah. Anybody wants to try?
This should be line 10 to 12.
Yeah, why?
Because I cannot redefine the constructor of base.
Constructor of base, yeah. So what do you call it? It is, yeah, redefining is like overriding, right? You cannot override the constructor.
Override, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So you cannot override the constructor of the base class. That's a simple logic here. There is nothing complicated. Okay. Anybody has any questions on this? If you know this, you know the answer. Otherwise, you don't know the answer. That's simple. If you know that you cannot override the constructor of the parent class, then you know the answer to this question. Otherwise, it will be difficult to figure it out. Okay. There is nothing to explain in this, basically. I mean, if anybody has any questions, I can take it. Okay. Yeah, this one. Does anyone want to try it? I think many of you will be seeing it for the first time, right? So you can just give it a try. I mean, there is nothing wrong in getting it wrong or anything.
Can I?
Yeah.
So
who is this? Sorry, I can't. Rahul. Yeah, Rahul.
The reason for it being a compiler error is that my method is not defined in the child class. And the reason why it has to be defined is that two of the because it's pulling from both the abstract class and interface class, both of which have a definition of my method. To resolve that, we must include the definition in the child class. If not, it will throw an error.
But there is a default implementation inside the interface, no? So why doesn't it take that? I mean, there are two definitions. One is inside, there are two declarations. I mean, one definition, one declaration. One is inside the abstract class. The other default definition is there in the interface. So why doesn't it take from there? Okay, it checks the abstract class. It's not there. Why doesn't it take from the interface?
Okay, I thought that it would, because in both the classes it would be defined. So to resolve that, we must always define it. I thought that was the logic. If that's wrong, then okay.
No. Suppose this was defined.
Plus,
okay, suppose this was defined. It was defined here. Okay, then what happens, Rahul? What happens if it is defined in here?
Well, according to my previous logic, then still it would need to be redeclared here to resolve the conflict. That's
not correct, no?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know why?
No.
Yeah, someone else is explaining. I think Ahim.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, who is it? Divyendu.
Ma'am, Divyendu.
Okay, yeah.
Ma'am, when two methods are same from interface and class, the Java will take the class one, the method which is class.
Yeah, correct. That's how we have set the priority, right? So whatever comes from the class will be given the priority, right? So if there are two methods with the same name, which is, so one is extending abstract class, the other is, and it is implementing the interface, and both the classes, I mean, both the class and the interface has this method in which one is defined, the other one it is not defined. But Java will look for, when there is the class and the interface, it will look for the definition inside the class. And if it is not there, it will throw an error. So Rahul, your option that the first one, right? This code generates a compilation error because my method is not defined class child is correct. But suppose it had a definition here, then even then you would have gone with the same option, which is not correct.
Yes.
I mean, you would have gone, yeah, got it, no? You would have.
Yeah.
Then it would have been that it would have taken from the abstract class. Got it, no? The definition from the abstract class. But then this will not be an abstract method at that point, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Bhaskar, do you want to correct me in that? I mean, is that correct? Or are you in the call?
Yeah, that is okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, just one. Does anyone have any questions on that? So there are two things. One is, this is extending an abstract class and implementing an interface. Both has these methods. This has an implementation, or rather a definition also. This is a declaration, whereas this has a definition also. So when this does not find the abstract class, can it go and get this method, the default definition from the interface? No. It will actually give preference. So if it is extracting one class and implementing another class, and both of them have the same method name, then it will look for the definition in the class only. Whether it is abstract class or a regular class, it will look on the class only. Okay. So if the definition is there, then it would have taken, then you don't need to override it. But then this will not be an abstract class then. It would be something else.
Madam, I have a question here.
Yeah, who is this? Can you?
Sandeep.
Sandeep, yeah.
Yeah, my method under the interface. So is the keyword default, does it signify the access modifier, or does it say that I'm going to put a default implementation here?
This is a default implementation. No, it is not the for default. I think we do not put a modifier. We can just say, if you say class, just simply a class and name, no, then that is a default modifier.
So whenever I find the
it
keyword
is a default implementation, yeah.
Okay, it's for the default implementation. Okay.
So I don't think we put a default modifier in front of a class ever. I have not seen that. As
No,
far as
it is
I'm-
in front of a method actually.
yeah,
So-
whenever you see it in front of a method,
Yeah, it is default definition. Yeah.
Default implementation. Yeah, correct.
Okay,
Definition.
okay. It's
Definition,
not the
correct.
access modifier. Okay.
For access modifier, if it is default,
Yeah,
you
there
don't
is
put
no
anything.
keyword for them. Yeah.
Default. Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm here in the first 3 lines, that abstract void my method. If I replace that with only void my method and I just open and close the bracket, removing that semicolon.
I'll just put it for you. So I am just going to have it like void
My
method
brackets.
and then,
Uh,
right. This
yeah.
one, right?
No, so normal brackets.
Yeah, and then curly braces.
Okay. Now in this case,
It will not throw an error. It will take it from there.
but we are not means in child class we are not overriding it now.
In child class, you don't have to override it. It's not an abstract method, right? And there is a definition also, right?
No, after removing abstract, it is the default method now. Now it has defined now. Means it's
No. That's exactly what Sandeep was asking. The default implementation and default modifier are two things. When you say default modifier, right, that has a totally different meaning. That's an access modifier in the sense that what is the accessibility of this method from within the class, outside the class, within the package. That kind of an access modifier is that default keyword. This default keyword, right? No, there is no default keyword there. Sorry. This is a default method, default. If you don't put anything before this, it means it is a default access modifier, but that is an access modifier only. It is not this default keyword is different from that default. This default is coming only inside interfaces, not inside abstract classes. Abstract classes, there is no default implementation for any of the method.
No, I wanted to know if we define like this void my method that you just write. In this scenario, is it will not throw error?
It will not throw error. Let me just try it out. Okay, I think if I copy it, I will have to remove all the. Let me just see. Okay. Can you see? Sorry. I'll just take the. Sorry, just give me a minute. I'm not able to open. What was that? Okay. Oops. Just give me a minute, okay? Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I have to remove the line numbers. Sorry. Sorry about that. See, it says the type child must implement the inherited abstract method, abstract one dot my method, right? Okay. Now I will remove this. Okay, I'll just remove this. You're saying like I have something like this, right?
Ma'am, it's not visible.
Oh, is it? Okay, how do I? Oh my God, I thought I was sharing. Okay, I have to. Okay, I'll just stop share and share this. Okay, just keep me a second. Can you see this now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I was just removing the line numbers. I'm sorry, it had the line numbers in the question.
See the class name, main class name, I think. Different.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So it's still showing an error. Just give me a minute.
I think it will show the error, no?
Okay, this is public. No? That is the problem. I think. Just give. Will it show an error? Cannot hide the public abstract method.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Sorry?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So I think since we are the void method that is there in the abstract class has the default access modifier, right? But in the interface, it is by default public.
Okay.
Right. So it is saying that we cannot hide the public
Okay,
abstract method. So it was sort of
if I put it public, it will work, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. That was Rahul or some, I didn't hear.
Afnan.
Afnan. Yeah. Thanks, Afnan. Yeah. So if I put it public here, there is no error. I think Chandrasekhar was asking the doubt, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Chandrasekhar, is it clear?
Now it's clear, ma'am. Yeah.
No, there is no compilation error. No. So even if, see, the default modifier, still I'm telling you like that default, and here it is a public. Actually, it is the access modifier is public. It is not the default access modifier. This is different. Okay, this default is different. Got it, no? Okay. I think I have to stop sharing again and share the other one. Just give it a second. Oh goodness, how do I? Okay, let me open this. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so is this clear? Anybody has any more questions? Okay. Yeah, so Bhaskar, do you want to take it from this one?
Yeah, so yeah, Arup sir, you will do first, or I think
Nalini having some questions, right? Nalini want to discuss that first?
Which
yeah,
is
okay,
Nalini?
I can discuss that.
Yeah.
Which one is it, Nalini? Are you going to share? You'll be sharing, no?
Yeah, okay, I can share. Yeah.
Okay, because you may want to write something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone want to try this question? Like, is it clear or? Yeah, okay.
Can I share my logic of doing this?
Yeah, you can definitely.
In the outer for loop, we are iterating from 1 to 5.
Yeah.
And in the inner for loop, this I determines the spacing given in the first for loop and does not affect the second for loop. So the number of stars will be always constant. Now,
Yes.
as for the number of spaces, the lower the I, the more number of spaces will be there. So because of that, it will be that left slanting option given below. Can you scroll down? This, the last option.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you are correct. The thing is, like, just for others, I'm explaining this once. Okay, we are iterating this outer for loop. We are iterating like from 1 to 5, no? So it will happen how many times? 5 times. Outer for loop will run for 5 times. So inside that we have 2 for loops. First, we are printing spaces, and then in the second for loop, we are printing stars, and this second for loop is constant. That inner second for loop is constant. That means it is running from 1 to 5. 1 to 5. So it also will happen. It also will happen 5 times. So every time, in every iteration, we are printing stars. So it will print star 5 times. And before that, before printing stars, we will execute this the first for loop. So what we are doing in the first for loop, this for loop is running from I to 4 only, because we are telling less than 5, no? So it must run till I to 4 only. So yeah, we are printing that many number of spaces. Let's take like when I is 1. So how many spaces will print? We will print from 1 to 4. That is 4 spaces. We will print 4 spaces in the first iteration. Okay, I will draw one table. So yeah, this is my outer for loop. Like this will run 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And inner for loop. Yeah, there are 2 inner for loops, no? Yeah, first, okay, for the first outer for loop, the second inner for loop will run. This is second inner for loop, and this is first inner for loop. This will run how many times? 1 to 4 times. That means 4 times. 4 times. First for loop will run 4 times, and second for loop will run 5 times. It will print 5 stars in every iteration. But the first outer for loop will print spaces. So in every iteration, so it will print 4 spaces first, and then the execution, then the control will goes to the second for loop. In that we are printing 5 stars. So that means first spaces 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and then we are printing 1 star. Yeah, we will print 5 stars here. Similarly, in the second iteration, the first inner for loop will run from 2 to 4. That means the second inner for loop will run from 2 to 4. It will run how many times? 2, 3, 4. 3 times, no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, 3 times. So you will, how many spaces you will print? 1, 2, 3 spaces, and then you will print stars, 5 stars. This is same. And similarly, the third outer for loop, there are 2 inner for loops, no, for outer thing. Yeah, first for loop will run from 3 to 4. That means 2 stars. You will print 2 stars, and then you will print 2 spaces, and then 5 stars. Yeah, so I think you should get the pattern now. See, the first pattern, this is wrong, right? And the second one, you are printing stars first. So that is not happening in your code, no? You are printing spaces first. That is not shown here. Like that is not correct, no? Yeah, in third thing is wrong. Third option is wrong, and fourth option is correct, because yeah, you are getting the same thing, same pattern in this manner only. So yeah, I think everyone got this, no? Or anyone? Is it clear?
Space printing is very good. The rest of the things are constant. I mean,
Yeah.
number of times.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll move to the next question. Yeah, this is similar to one of your graded assignment question. The same thing, you can answer this. Yeah, anyone wants to explain this?
Would you please scroll? I mean, which option is first option is not correct.
Okay, you want
Because
the options, yeah.
Actually, students have a registration operation. Teachers as a profile modifications, other things.
Yeah, yes. So only what things we are discussed in the question, like we here we are talking about an educational institute which has number of teachers. So the thing which we are talking is about educational institution and which has teachers here. So just like I will write here so that teachers here. So yeah, teachers have schedules for their teaching times, dates and times. So what operation teachers can do, they can what schedule their teaching days and times. Teachers can update their profiles and update the teaching subjects and teaching times. They can update their profile and they can update the teaching subjects and teaching timings. Students need to register for the courses to audit them. Okay, what this and other thing we are discussing here is about
Teachers. So teachers,
teachers
yeah.
we have discussed, and then next topic is students.
No,
Students
teacher,
need to
one more thing is there. Teacher can also provide us the assignment.
yeah, teachers teach the subject and provide various assignments to the students. So what teachers do, teachers generally they can schedule their teaching days and time. Their work is to what their general work is to schedule the teaching days and time and update their profile and update their teaching subjects and teaching timings. So all these works are for teacher, and teachers teach the subject and provide various assignments. They also provide the assignments to the students. So this activity is also and is what who is responsible for providing assignments? Teacher. So this is also duty work of the teacher, no? Yeah. So all these things comes under teacher, what teacher type. And the other thing what the students need to do, students need to register for the courses to audit them. Yes, mainly what students are doing, just registering the courses. Their work is to register for the courses here according to this contest. And the assignments can be different, no? Now you are seeing different types of assignments. So assignment itself is another category. So mainly we are talking about teacher. There is like teacher type, student type, and assignment type. And no more details are provided about the assignment type, no? So just like no, like here we haven't mentioned any operations for the assignment type, but other things like here we mention add and modify on profile, add modify teaching time, and modify teaching subjects, and provide assignments. Okay, we'll see why other options are wrong. Add and modify on profile, yeah, this is okay. Add and modify teaching time, but there are other works also for teacher, no? They should do these things, so that is not there here. And the first and this third option, add and second option, add and modify on profile, add and modify teaching timing, modify teaching subject. Yeah, here also providing assignments thing is missing here. Teachers
Your voice is so broken.
similarly,
Can
yeah, assignment type.
Nalini, your voice is breaking. Can you repeat the last sentence? It was totally like not
Yeah, I
audible
think
at all.
yeah, my internet trouble. Yeah, internet is
Yeah, can you repeat the last sentence here? Just the last sentence.
okay. Yeah, here the thing is like providing assignment is also teacher's job, right? That is not that is not mentioned in this option. So this is not correct option. Is it clear now, or is it still breaking?
No, you're audible. You're audible.
Okay, thanks, ma'am. Yeah. So why the first option is incorrect? Assignment type with operation add assignments, that is not mentioned in the questions, no? We are not telling like assignment. In assignments there are different kind of assignments. Nothing is specified about like assignments, no? Adding assignment operation is not there. And student type, there is register the course thing, that is also not mentioned in this option. So yeah, that's why this option is correct. Yeah. anyone has doubt regarding this, or okay, should I move to the next thing? Next question. Okay. That, yeah. First is abstract class shape. First line is abstract class shape. So you need to identify the errors in this in the code, and you need to mention why those lines are incorrect.
Yeah, extract square, extend rectangle and shape. That is, and both are class,
Yeah,
right?
this is incorrect. Yeah, both are classes. Yeah,
So it doesn't take. Yeah, it doesn't take. If it is implements, sorry, if it is interface, then it will.
Yeah, interface, it's correct. But yeah, this is incorrect because
Yeah,
sir
yeah.
also discussed in the lecture, if we have same method in both rectangle and shape, which method we should does the square should take that thing, no? Yeah, okay, that's why this is not possible in Java. Like multiple inheritance of the classes is not possible, whereas interfaces is possible. Yeah. Any other mistakes? I think I should scroll.
In rectangle, there is no constructor with void, that is no parameters. There's only one with 2 parameters.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 25, line number 25 also, like we are trying to create the object of rectangle using like no, we are calling what no parameter constructor, no. Yeah, that is not present. But Java compiler will give you default constructor if no constructor is present. But if your class already has a constructor, then it is the only the constructor that we should use while creating the objects. So there is no no, like with in this rectangle class, you can see we have constructor with 2 arguments, no other constructors. So by using this you cannot create object. Yeah, that's all. Errors. So yeah, private illegal accessing of private variables in line 11. So this is incorrect because you can access the private variables within the class, but outside the class you cannot access the private variables. So here we are talking in the line 11, we are using length and breadth, which are defined inside rectangle class. You are using inside the class, so it is, you can use them. So it is not correct. And missing return statement in line 12. See, void has no return, like void does not return anything. So you need not specify return statement while using void. No, this is like, I think this also we have discussed in the earlier sessions. Yeah, extending 2 classes is not allowed in the line 14. Yeah, that's also like, yeah, you cannot extend 2 classes in Java. And line 20, illegal accessing of private variables. So you are accessing side variable, side into side. Side is present inside the square class. Yeah, you are accessing that side variable inside the class itself. So it is allowed. And missing return statement, same reason. Void does not return anything. So we should not write return statement in void. If your method is not return, if your method return type is void, we should not write return statement in your method. And line 25, R cannot be created because methods are incomplete. That is incorrect. No, see, rectangle has area method. Yeah, we have defined the area method inside it. So it has definition also. We have given definition for that method also. It is not only like we haven't declared the area method, we have defined it. So like, yeah, that is arc we cannot create. We cannot create the object of rectangle like this because of no matching constructed, not because methods are incomplete. I think it is clear, or should, or anyone, like, you can ask, like, if you have some any queries in any of the statements or anything. Okay. Okay, Arup sir or Bhaskar, you can.
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nalini.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I will show my screen.
Is it visible?
Yes, visible.
Okay. Okay, I'll go for discussing this. This question basically it is asking the thing. What will be the appropriate definitions for traversable, bi-traversable, and list? Right. So you need to identify what will be the interface. If it is interface, what should be the abstract method? And if it is the abstract method, what should be the abstract? Sorry, if it is an abstract class, what should be the abstract method? So there are three things: traversable, bi-traversable, and list. So let us try to find out from the given program. So first thing, list can be an interface.
No, because it's extent.
Because it's extent. So only option, it can be either a class or a
Abstract class.
Abstract class. That's the final thing, or that's the main thing. Okay. So we are having a final, a constant n. Then we are having an array. We are copying this array. So there is a add method which is implemented over here. There is an inner class which is traversal, which implements bi-traversable. So bi-traversable should be what?
An interface.
Interface.
Basically an interface. It's clear. Okay. So in bi-traversable, what is happening? There are two functions. One is print forward, another is print backward. Right? Okay. So what it returns? Sorry. What this particular class is having, this int list. Int list basically having a method called as a get traversal object, which returns an object of traversal. Okay. So we are having an array. We call the int list, pass the array. This array will be totally copied to, it's not copy by val, it's basically copy by reference. You can understand this is array is a reference type. So both will be referring to the same array. Okay. Now see, ilist get traversable. What it returns? It returns a object of traversal. But I'm getting the object inside traversable. I'm getting the object inside the traversable. So my question is, traversable must be a class, abstract class, or an interface? What do you think?
I think it should be interface.
Why not? It's a class. Any logic? It cannot be a class.
Actually, I think it can't be a class because a bi-traversal is already a interface.
Yeah.
So it has also
Traversal already implementing the bi-traversal, right? So you are going to get a reference which is a parent type. So definitely the traversable will be at the top of traversal, right? So the top of the traversal is already a bi-traversal. So the traversable, sorry, it's a bi-traversable. Again, I repeat here. See, this traversable, it's a reference type. A reference can refer to its own object or child object, right? So that's why, as you are referring to a child object, that is traversal object. So definitely this traversable must be a super of traversal. But what we can find, the super of traversal is already by traversal. So only possibility is that traversable will be a super of by traversable now. Only the possibility is traversable is a super of by traversable. That is only the chance you have. To understanding this, what I say?
Yes, sir.
See, traversal already inheriting by traversable, right? But you need the traversable meant to be made as a parent of traversal, but you cannot make direct parent because direct parent is by traversable. So the way you can do it, you can make traversable the parent of by traversable. So it's a parent of parent, right? But you already know by traversable is an interface. So what can be an parent of an interface? Can it be a class? Can it be an abstract class, or it can be interface?
Can be interface only.
Yeah. Can an interface can inherit from a class? Can an interface inherit from an abstract class? Is it possible?
No, sir.
No, sir.
It's not possible because interface is absolutely abstract, right? Whereas abstract class is a partial abstraction and concrete class is no abstraction. So you can go from an abstraction to a concrete thing. So interface to interface, interface to an abstract class, interface to a class is possible. Because from abstraction, you are moving towards the concreteness for the implementation. But reverse is not possible. From a class to an interface, or abstract class to an interface, or from a class to an abstract class, this kind of is not possible, right? So that's why it's quite clear that traversable must be a parent of by traversable. Now the question is, what should be my method? Now what can be the method of list? What can be the abstract method of the list? It's an abstract class, right? Yes, anyone?
May I, sir?
Yeah, please.
So I think since list is being extended by int list, so and there is this implementation of the add method. So what I think is that list should have an abstract declaration for the add method.
Yeah, it can be add, it can be get traversal object
as
also.
well.
Yeah, it could be anything like. So all the things are implemented, maybe abstract inside the list, I do not know.
Yes, sir.
Whatever the implementation we have inside the int list, that may be an abstract method inside the list. I do not know. Okay. Now the next thing, by traversable is an interface. Now can you guess what could be the abstract method inside the by traversable? Can you guess the abstract method for by traversable?
May I, sir?
That can be print forward or print backward.
Yeah, it can be both, right? It can be both. It can be both. I'm not sure which one, but it can be both. Now, for traversable, what could be the abstract method? For traversable. See, I'm calling print forward with reference to an it's not an object, it's a reference of type traversable. So traversable must have this capability, no? Print forward. Getting my point? Since I am calling this print forward with reference to and reference of traversable. So traversable must have this capability of a print forward. So print forward must be an abstract method inside the traversable. And if the print forward is an abstract method in the traversable, then what should be the abstract method inside by traversable? Because print forward, it will get it from the traversable, right? So
And
what should be the
print backward?
Print backward. That's the thing. So I'm just trying to fill in the gaps now. So traversable having print forward, which is inherited by traversable, which is having print backward. So that's why if you want to implement by traversal, you need to implement print forward, print backward, because both you are getting. Print forward you're getting from the traversable through by traversable. And from by traversable, you're directly getting the print forward, right? And what you're getting from list, add
and get traversal.
Yeah,
traversal
they
of-
may be or may not be. So now we need to check the answer because we know what could be there. So traversable is an interface, no problem. By traversable also is an interface. So okay. But list cannot be an interface to solve, right? List has to be an abstract class, right?
Abstract class.
Because it's an extent. Okay. Traversable is not definitely an abstract because it is inherited by an interface. That's not possible, right? Abstract class cannot be inherited into a interface. Next is traversable is an interface. By traversable also is an interface. List is an abstract class. And as per the methods also it is fine. Print forward, print backward, and add. So add, it is coming from the list, and this get traversable, the traversal object is its own function of int list. It is its own function. It is, we are not getting it from the parent. It may happen, right? So I told both of them may be taken from the list, but it's not mandatory both will come from the list. So either this add can come or this get traversable come, or both can come. And last option is, this is an interface. Interface implements interface. Is it possible?
No, sir.
It must be a extends, right?
Yeah.
And it's a, this is the wrong thing. So I think everyone understood, right?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please.
Please repeat this again.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, why I cannot write that private class traversal extends traversable?
Private class
Traversal extends traversable and implements by traversable.
Yeah, I can write that. In that case, I need to make the traversable as an abstract method, right? If you write traversal extends traversable, then traversable must be an abstract class, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's not the case, no, here.
But why, sir?
Yeah, you can write it. But here it's the case is we're implementing, right?
Right, but so here it is given that implement, so I cannot add extend something like that. I have to only use implements. Is it?
Yeah, this is the code given to you, right? So the question is you need to identify the definition of traversable, by traversable, and list.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
sir, understood.
It's not like accordingly you have to change the code. Yeah. So somebody, yeah.
Sir, will you please repeat again?
Entire thing or?
Sir, because this public class in list extends list. So list is a class, it is extended by int list. But you are saying abstract, so I just confused in between initially. And
It can be,
I understood.
if you have extends, it can be either a class or abstract class.
Yeah.
Right. So in my option, there is no abstract normal class, right? All are abstract class and interface.
Okay, that's why you are saying it is abstract class.
Yeah, that's why I'm calling it as an abstract class. Now, if it is an abstract class, next question is which can be your abstract method. Right. So either this can be an abstract method or this can be an abstract method, or both can be abstract method, right?
Because these are now concretely defined.
Yeah, these are now concretely defined. So I do not know which is abstract. So I need to check suitable definition. So interface, this is wrong. This is abstract. Add can be abstract method. So this is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
This is also correct. This is also correct.
Yes.
Now we need to check for the rest of the part. Now we have implements by traversable. Now implements as it is there, it must be an interface.
Interface, yeah.
So you need to choose where you are having the by traversable as an interface. And since by traversable as interface, you may have this one as an abstract method, you may have this one as an abstract method, or you may have both as an abstract method. right?
Okay.
Now, if you look at whenever we are using this function, get traversal object, which returns a traversal object, right? A traversal type object. Now, whenever I've called it, see, I catch the object inside a reference, which is traversable type. And here I got the object inside a by traversable type. So that means traversable and by traversable both are parent of traversal. Because if you have a parent type reference, then only you can hold a child type object, right?
Yeah.
So that means this traversable and by traversable both must be parent of this. But what you can see, by traversable already is my parent. Right?
Yes.
So it is not written explicitly, my parent is also traversable. So we need to understand the traversable is not a direct parent, but it could be an indirect parent, right? So how it can be an indirect parent? That traversable having a parent by traversable and by traversable having a parent traversable.
Traversal.
But now question is, if by traversable is an interface, traversable, can it be a class, abstract class or interface? Now, whenever you are having a child which is of interface type, the parent also should be a interface, right? Yes. Because whenever we go in a hierarchy of a inheritance, the top you will go for more abstraction. You go towards the child, you go for the more concrete classes, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's why from interface, you can have an interface, an abstract class and a concrete class, right? From an abstract class, you can have an abstract class or an class, concrete class. But you cannot have an interface from abstract class, because abstract class is more abstract than abstract class, right? Because inside the interface, everything is abstract. Whereas in an abstract class, you can have some implementation and have some abstract methods also. So it is partially abstract, right?
Yes.
And for a concrete class, everything is implemented. So nothing is abstract. So getting my point. So interface, inheriting something, you need to understand that is also interface.
Yes.
So that is the idea. So am I clear to everyone or?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Afnan here. I had a question regarding this particular code. So the by traversable is an interface, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And traversable, which we will be defining later on, is also an interface, right?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering that we need to actually check the options to arrive at a decision about whether print forward is in by traversable or print backward. I mean, like it could be
yeah, I got your point.
It could be the other way around also, right?
Yeah, see, one thing is sure, that print forward is from the traversable. This is sure, right?
Okay. Why is it so, sir?
Because TR1 is of the static type of TR1 is traversable, right?
Yes, sir.
So whenever you call for print forward, you must have this capability inside the traversable. No, otherwise you cannot call print forward.
Okay, so it should be at the top of the hierarchy.
Yeah. Otherwise, until and unless it is declared inside the traversable, I'm not saying implemented. Until and unless it is declared. So interface, what we do, we declare the capability, right? So traversable must have the capability print forward, right? That's why I can call it. Now you can understand that TR1 dot backward, I never called for print backward. That means that capability may not be there inside traversable. It may be there, but it may not be there.
Okay, sir. So so it is like since traversable is the parent interface, so print forward cannot be from by traversable, because if it had been the case,
yeah,
then
it's by default from by traversable. No, traversable is a parent of by traversable.
By traversable. So print forward, yes,
print forward is in the traversable, then by traversable also will have this.
No, that is fine. I was talking about the other way around. It is clear to me now. So I'm just trying to understand. So the traversable is a parent. We understand that. So print forward, I'm saying that print forward must have been from traversable, not from the
Yeah.
child by traversable.
No,
It is
no.
because we are calling it directly, so it must be at the top. That is
At
the
the
reasoning.
top, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my question. Thank you so much.
But
It's clear.
print backward could be in both of them. Like it
Yeah,
can
print
be in
backward,
traversable
yeah.
also. By traversal, that is not known to us.
Because it is a child
Yeah.
interface, so we don't know whether it belongs
Yeah.
to the child itself or from the parent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that
can
was
be like
yeah.
your traversable may have the print forward and
Forward or
backward,
print backward
and by
also.
traversable getting both of the thing from the
Right.
traversable. So that we don't know. For that we need to check for the options.
All right, thank you so much. So I was just concerned about the association of those methods. So it is clear now. Yeah. All right.
So anyone still? This is very conceptual kind of question. Like rather than it's very difficult, because if you are clear about the hierarchy, like the abstraction, what can be inherited by what, then it's a very easy question.
Right, sir.
It's okay for all, no? I feel so. Okay. Let me go. One more question, but that's a simple question. I think everyone will be able to answer that. Yeah, this one. Okay, rather than going for matching, I want to just discuss what is what. So why I use a stack for storage of a program? A stack is defined for storing the local variables of a function, right? It stores the local variable of a function. Why use a heap? Heap for the dynamic memory allocation, which requires you explicitly as a programmer allocate the memory and free your memory. Because in stack, your variables will be stored inside the activity, what we call it, which record?
Activation record.
Activation, sorry, activity, it's coming into my mind. It will be stored on an activation record, and whenever I call the function, the activation record will be created, and inside that activation record, all the local variables will be allocated. And as soon as I'll return from the function, the activation record will basically will be deleted from the stack. So whenever the activation is getting record is getting deleted, at the same time the local variables also will be freed, or it will be deleted from the memory, right? So you do not have to manage the memory for the local variables, since when you call it, it will be automatically allocated inside the activation record. Whenever the function returns, it will be automatically get freed. But whenever you want to allocate anything in the heap, you need to explicitly allocate the memory, and once the use is done, you have to free it explicitly. Otherwise, it won't be freed like that. So it needs a explicit request by the programmer for allocation and deallocation. Now, automatic garbage collector, which is a property of Java, which do an interesting thing. So if we allocate something on the heap, so whenever it finds out it is not in use, it automatically clean it up, automatically free it, right? So it's a runtime environment. It checks and clean the dead storage, so which are currently not in any use. Now, I'm having different functions, and for each functions I'm having a activation records, right? Now you need to understand which function currently I'm working on. So that will be at the top of the stack. The top most activation record, it belongs to the function currently I'm working on, which is currently executing. So now the variable which are in my scope, that means which are defined inside that particular function, must be where? They must be on the top of the topmost activation records only. So the variable belongs to other functions are not inside my scope, no? So whenever I'm inside my function, I can see what is defined inside my function, what is inside the scope of that function. So for function A, there is an activation record. For function B, there is an activation record. For function C, there is an activation record. So whenever I'm calling the function C at the end, I need to understand currently I'm executing function C. So that is on the top, right? So the scope of the variables must be there on the topmost activation record. But lifetime looks for till the variables having an allocation inside your stack. So it may be inside any activation record, I do not bother. So it is there on the activation record means it is having a memory allocation. That means it is inside its lifetime. Scope means it should be something belongs to your current execution. Lifetime means it should be allocated inside your memory, right? So that's why variable inside its lifetime must be anywhere inside the stack. It may be in any activation record, I do not bother. But scope of the variables, those must be which is the function currently executing. So currently execution function will be always on the topmost activation record. So variables belonging to the topmost activation records are inside the scope. So I hope it's okay, right? It makes it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Bhaskar.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I will
Thank you.
start now.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to interrupt. I do have one question. So in the theory assignments that we have, so we have a code there, right? So in Python, what used to happen was that there was this code which was highlighted, like color coded, and it was properly formatted, like code view type of a thing. So I was just wondering whether it is also possible to do that for Java or not, because it makes reading the code a lot easier. That is why I was, and there was this on the left side, you had this line numbers also. In Python, it used to be like formatted like.
We are having a little kind of trade-off. Like if you have to give this kind of code, we may have to put it in form of an image. So in that case, you may not be able to directly copy paste and execute your code. So
Okay. Yeah,
that's the problem is
but
like
yeah, I understand
one
that.
way it could be like directly copy pasted and you can execute it. That saves a lot of time. And another way it could be have much more visibility, but I don't know which you prefer, but
Because in Python, what used to happen is that we could also copy it, right? Yeah, exactly. In Python, we could
I'm
also
not
copy.
sure. Then I have to check it.
Yeah, because I think there is this in the portal. There is this specific text box.
You're telling about programming assignment or
not about programming assignment, theory assignments. Only the view of those code. Actually, it's just plain text, and then the font size is also a little bit small. So
any comments? I'm not sure. Like
I think it will be helpful for all the other
I
people
have
also.
to check, Jay. Check. I have no idea. I have to check.
If you could,
So, may I make a suggestion? Actually, one thing that I thought is that for activity questions, up till activity and maybe practice, we can put that regular text thing because we can copy and paste. But for the graded, maybe we can keep it like the screenshot that picture so that it will be closer to what we get in exam. Because in exam, anyway, we can't like copy and paste and put it to a terminal. No? So that's my thought.
Yeah, Rahul. So we'll check if both are possible. The sense that Afnan says it both was possible in Python, like the syntax highlighting plus copying was possible, is what he says.
Yes,
So if that is
it was.
possible, we'll see if it can be done. If not, maybe we'll stick to what you said. If it's graded, we'll have it as images. For the others, it will be like copyable text or something. We have to see. We have to discuss with the ops team who configure the questions.
Excuse me, ma'am. One other query. So, will it be possible to like a little bit increase the font size also, like in plain text also, if it is possible to increase the font size a little bit, so that it is easier to see also.
Font size of what?
Of the code that is there.
Right now, the portal font size is pretty readable, right? I thought the font is readable. No, and I don't know.
There is this zooming option there, but it's still, if that font size itself could be a little bit increased, particularly for the code. I mean, only for the code, not for the rest of the elements. Only for the code, if it could be increased a little bit, it would be helpful.
So you're talking about the practice and graded objective assignments, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So did anyone else feel the font size was smaller? For the code snippets inside the practice and graded
no, ma'am,
objective
it's
assignment?
okay.
No, ma'am.
Even I thought it is readable. I think there may be some settings in the because see, I totally understand the syntax highlighting part, but the font, I feel it is like very, very. In fact, I find it. I would have preferred it little smaller so that you have to scroll less. within the this thing. So I don't know, like if you're talking about the same.
Maybe the screen sizes also differ, so maybe it is because of that. But if syntax highlighting at least could be implemented, that would be very, very helpful, I think.
Yeah, I'll discuss this.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we will see, as ma'am said, we will see what can be done about it. But one thing I wanted to also, in Python, in the programming, did you have programming assignments? I think you had, right?
Yes, sir, we had.
So
Yes,
in
sir.
program, yeah, okay. In programming assignment, the code, I mean, the snippet on everything which was given in the IDE, the editor. So was that also color coded or something like that, or was it like this only normal?
No, it is normal.
Okay. So only the theoretical questions, I mean the PQ, GQ and activity questions are, I mean, they were given like that, right?
No, sir, that was also normal. Like we are having now.
But your friend just said, right?
No, I think, okay, maybe it is a difference in batch. I think I was in the later batches, so maybe, yeah, exactly. So in my batch, it was there, like the color coding was there.
Okay,
for all the theory assignments, whether it be graded or for practice as well. Yeah.
But not in programming, right? In theory assignment.
Programming, actually, we had this text box itself, which is kind of a mini IDE. So we already had this color coding in that. Like in Java, it's also the same thing. I mean, like
Same
the
thing,
same,
right?
yeah, same thing. Yeah. Programming, it is same. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to ask that. Yeah, regarding the theoretical things, we will see. As
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start. Okay, so is the font visible or should I make it a little bit larger? Oh, fine. So there's a theoretical question. I think it's direct, like what is the advantage of static typing, and choose the correct option. So we know that compiler can make better code optimization. Which of the following, I mean, it is actually an advantage of static typing. So it is not the correct choice because we are asking which is not a advantage, right? So in static typing, when you are making the data types, declaring the data types and conforming to that, so the compiler can decide how we can make multiple optimization that we discussed in one session, I think. So yeah, that is a valid point for static typing. You can get a better optimization if you have static typing. Other thing is makes debugging of errors much easier, which is true again for static typing, and reduces the number of runtime errors is also true because yeah. So since you do not have in dynamic typing, since at the compile time you will not have the types, and maybe you can change a single named variable storing some other data, right? So maybe at runtime you can run into some trouble, but that would not be there in static typing. Okay. So option 3 is the correct choice, which makes the program less verbose. Just a second. Yeah, so makes the program less verbose, which is actually not the proper option or proper advantage for static typing, because this is actually advantage of dynamic typing. Any doubt in this question? On any particular point? Okay, fine. So let's go to the next question. Yeah. So this basically pass by reference and pass by value, that kind of concept. So any doubt in this question? If anyone has doubt, please ask.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have not doubt in this question, but related to this.
Okay.
So if I define a static method in parent class and also in the subclass, so it is said that the subclass static method is hiding the parent class static method, right?
Yeah.
But when I call the method,
The parent class method gets called, right?
yes, why is it?
Yeah. So I mean, when we, I mean, the way it is said that it is hiding, but actually the subclass version is hidden. Every time the parent class version would be the one which would be present. So we say it in that manner. I don't know whether there is any other explanation to it, but yeah, it's said like that.
Okay, so it is just a saying, but in reality, the parent class method is being called.
Yeah, so we generally say that the version of the method when we inherit static methods, we say that the child class method hides parent class method. So actually, what if you do it in programmatically, you will see that the child class method is actually hidden, and always the parent class method is actually getting called because that is the version. See, the idea is, let me just give an so suppose this is your certain. Yeah. So if I have a static method over here, whatever, fine. So mind one thing, if you do not write static over here, it would directly give you error. Okay, so in either one of them, where if either here or here, if in one of them, if you do not write static, it would directly generate a compile time error. But yeah, in both of them, if you write static, then it would execute this method always. Now the see generally we call the child class method is hiding the parent class method, but in this respect, what's happening actually is that this method which we call the parents class method, that is also present over here, right? It is coming as an inherited member, right? So basically, if I look over here, right? So I can have two definitions of this. Only that this is from parent class. Okay, but now what do we call this method, the one which is inherited? Is it parent class's method or is it child class's method? Obviously it is inherited from parent class, the second one, but it is now a part of child class, right? So that's one way you can, I mean, you can reason with that, saying that the parent child class version hides the parent class. That is one possible way. But ideally, programmatically, if you run, then every time the parent class version would be executed.
Okay.
Yeah. And logically also, we can explain this logically also, that if you ask why the parent class and why not the child class, that can be explained logically. But why we in statement, why we say it like that, I also don't know why we say it like that. So, but if you want to ask that why the parent class is chosen and not the child class, so that the explanation for that would be, see, since a static method is not pertinent to a particular class, I mean to the particular object of a class, right? It is for generally the class, I mean the class itself, not for any specific object. So when I'm extending a child, what we are actually trying to say, a child is a parent, I mean not in this respect, but yeah, a child is a parent, which is a relationship. So all objects of child are actually also objects of parent. Whatever data is there in a child object, right? I mean, sorry, whatever data is there in a parent object, you should be there in the child object as well. Okay, so since static methods are not with respect to object, so any inheritance will not be applied over there. So what is at the topmost level is the one that you will refer. Okay, because there is not a property that you are inheriting generation after generation. This is just like a basic fundamental thing that should be there for the super level class. Okay, so that is the logic why you call the parent method, but why do we call it like that? I don't know. I mean, why do we say that the child class version hides the parent class version? Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so this question is basically easy question. So if you understand the basic working of passing parameters, it is easy. So generally, so see what's happening over here is we have 3x defined. So this is 1x, right? This is a data member x equal to 20. Right? So 2x's are there. Fine. So when I'm using x in this statement, so what will be the value inside this x? Will it be 20 or will it be 100?
100, sir.
Okay, if I want it explicitly to be 20, what should I write?
This dot x.
What should I write? Sorry, I could not hear you.
This dot x.
This dot x, yeah. So I will just write this dot x. Okay, so that would do. Okay, so because again this is local scope, right? So whenever local scope, I mean, you will always go, the compiler will always check to the lowest level of scoping and then it will go outside one by one. So the lowest level of scoping, the local scope is saying that x is 100. So we are passing x equal to 100 and the array a equal to, we have defined something, right? Then we are passing it to the function over here. Now, what is stored in ARR? Can you tell me what? So let's, can the memory map of ARR, can you tell me? So suppose this is the memory for ARR, okay, and this is the memory for X, and this X is there, right? So this is the memory for this X.
It will store the reference of A.
Yeah. So my question is, so yeah, my question is the content inside A, this array, right? So let's assume this array starts from address 0xff. Just assume that this array, A array, right? A array, the A array starts from memory address 0xff, where in the real memory, right? So A is storing 0xff, or A is storing 2, this first element 2. What is the value stored inside A? Is it 2 or is it 0xff?
2.
Okay, so if you're saying that if I suppose write print A, I mean A will print something else, but logically if I want to access the memory where A is stored, that memory would be storing 2, right?
No, sir. That is the offset, no, sir.
So which one, 2 or 0xff? Which one? It will not store 2?
No, A always store, I mean, A start from FF.
Yeah, exactly. See, A will never store the memory of A where A is stored, right? This is the memory chunk of A. That will never store 2. That will always store the first address where the array starts. It will not store the first value of the array. Rather, it will store the first address of the where the that starts. Okay, so this is the basic idea of passing a reference. And what will be stored inside X?
What will be stored inside?
XX, this one.
Okay, currently it will store 100. I mean, whatever the program is there.
Are you sure?
X, right?
Yeah. So here X will store 100.
Yeah, in the program it will store 100.
Yeah. Now, when you are over here in this function, then what is the value of x? And first of all, tell me whether this memory location, this box, and this memory location, this box, are these two same or different?
The two are different.
Okay, okay. So these two boxes in memory are different. So this box is present inside the activation record of fun. Okay, this is present in fun's activation record.
Yeah, fun stack. Yeah, it will be declared on fun stack.
Yeah, this is in the activation record of main. Okay, so that was the idea. These two are different. Okay, so this value will be storing 100 again because we are copying the value. But what will ARR store now? What will be present inside this box? Will it be 2 or 0 XFF or what?
0 XFF.
Yeah. So see, here we are copying the address, but here we are copying the value, and we are not doing anything different for that. It's just how the syntax works. So for arrays, we do not store the value, we store the address. And that's why when we pass the parameter to the function, automatically the address gets copied. But for normal variables, we are storing the value. And that's why when we pass the variable as a parameter, then only the value gets copied. So every time actually you see the value is only getting copied, right? Only the value is getting copied. But the difference is here the value is address. Here the value itself is address. And here the value is itself a number or is actually a value. So many people argue that whether Java works by call by reference or call by value, Java actually works by call by value only. The difference is that you can see the effect of call by reference in Java because we are copying the address as a value, and that's why you can see the difference like that.
Actually, when I'm reading the variable, I mean the particular array variable, that time it is showing that it is the address.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the showing, I mean, it exactly treated as an address.
Yeah. It is generally an address. So for arrays, not only for arrays, for any reference type, any object,
Any reference, yes.
any reference, arrays, whatever. So it will be treated as, yeah. So this question is asked in many interviews and all. So what do you believe? Does Java work by call by reference or call by value? So you can give this logic that it only works by call by value, but the difference is we are passing the value as an passing the address as a value in case of reference type variable. That's why it reflects the effect of call by reference, but it is not call by reference. Okay. In C++, you can explicitly, yeah.
So here on in main function that is on stack, we are defining this array. So only offset of that will be stored on stack, or the entire array will be stored?
No, this is in memory, right? So
this is in memory.
This is in local. I mean so what you store in the A, this A is there. So a memory block corresponding to A, you will store the base address. I mean the address of the first element which is stored, right? So see. So
the entire array is not present on stack in that.
Entire array is present in this case because this is a local array which is there inside. I mean, see, let me just draw the memory map. Just bear with me. How many? 5, right? So this is the structure. This whole thing is present inside your activation record because there is a local variable. Fine. In mains activation record, this whole thing is present. Fine. See what's happening. 0xA6 is the memory location where the value for A is stored. A is the name, I mean, of this memory location where it is stored, and this memory location is storing 0xFF, which is the base address of this array.
So
Okay.
for A, that 0xFF is actually the value, though it is offset for the array, but it's a value, and actually we are passing value only inside the function.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why I was saying that it is call by value only. Okay, many people debate, many people do it in different way, but yeah, that is the logic. So 0x6 is the address for storing A, and the value stored inside this address is 0xFF, which is the starting address of the array. Right? So 0xFF is the starting address of 2. Then, I mean, so if you add 4 bytes, so whatever number you get, if it is byte addressable, those goes to computer architecture. But yeah, so let's assume you have to have another variable. FF is the last thing that you can have. So anyway, so just assume that it's the last is so you will have the next address over here. Okay, so 0xFF plus 1, that address.
So whatever the data type will be there, that is not, I mean, size of A will be the equal for whatever the data type array we are declaring.
Yeah. If 4 bytes, then if it is a byte addressable memory, just go by 4 more.
Yeah, it depends upon the systems.
Yeah.
System based.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is the basic idea of how it is passed and why how it is working. And then this code is just simple code. I mean, the main thing is testing that whether you know that where you are setting the diff. I mean, if a change is there in fun, would that change be reflected inside main or not? That was the basic idea. So anyway, just solve it fast. So A here x is 100. So here also x is 100. So we pass 100 is less than ARR dot length, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so it is lesser than 5. Yeah, sorry, greater than 5. And then what we do is we will divide it by 2 as long as it is greater. So divide 100 by 2 as long as it is greater by 5. Right. So after this loop terminates, you will get x equal to 5 because x is an integer variable. Actually, it should be 5.125. Sorry, will it be 5.125? No. It should be 3.125. Sorry, 3.125. So you will get here equal to 3. Right. So 100, 50, 25, 12.25. Sorry, 12.5 and then 6.25 and 3.125. Divide by 2. So 3 is the last thing that you are getting, and then what we are doing is we are simply making array I equal to 3 by equating x. Now the changes reflected for array would be, I mean, changes made inside array would be reflected, but obviously this x, although changed, it would not be reflected because this change would be reflected over here, and these two memory for x are different. But 0xFF is the base memory, right? Therefore, all the changes made over here would actually be reflected over here, right? Whatever you are making everything 3, right? And since here also A is pointing to the same memory location, right? A is pointing to the same memory location. That's why both A and ARR, whatever the change they make, it will be reflected. Okay. So basically, you will get an output of whatever 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5 3s because 5 array. And then you are printing the value of x. X is unchanged. X is 100. This x has turned into 3. This x has turned into 3. So you will get 100. So I think that's, yeah.
Sir, in the function in my means fun a comma x, you said if I write this dot x, it will refer to 20.
If you write this dot x, it will refer to 20. But there is, oh yeah, static, yeah, 20.
Oh, so that was what I asking, that is it only for writing static?
No. Okay, so this dot x not, you have to write test dot x, right?
Test dot x, okay.
Yeah, sorry, I did not see that. Yeah, you have to write test dot x. That would refer to 20.
Okay.
So one different, I did not see that was static. So this should be test dot x.
Excuse me, sir. So the output is println x now, so it should be on new line every value.
What? Output.
System.out.println x.
Yeah. So?
So the value of x. Sorry.
That is the last value, right?
Last value. Sorry.
Oh, regarding the new line.
Actually, he was thinking that 3,
Yes,
then next line 3, next line 3, next line 3, then 100.
No.
That he
So
was.
yeah, okay.
No, I'm
So,
mistaken. Sorry.
here we are using print, right? And
Yeah.
last we are using println, but this println does not mean you will get an output like this, right? Because all the prints are done. So println x, that means the x should be printed in the next line. That is not the case. Otherwise, you would have got output like this, but you are not getting like that, right? This is not the output. What println does is it will print the value which we are passing directly on the line the control is now. After that, it will go to the next line after printing. So ideally, if we check over here, what this code does is after printing this 100, the compiler will go to the next line. And if you write a simple print statement without println, if you simple print statement print 200, right? So now this 200 will be printed here. You are simply using print, not println, but the compiler has gone to next line. That's how println works. So it will print first and then go to next line. Okay. Fine. So no more doubts, right, in this question? Any doubt? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll just make it smaller. Tell me whether you can see it. Is it visible? Okay. It's okay. Small only. Yeah, so what is the case in this question? What is happening? Can someone explain?
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sumishta, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So here, with reference to planet class, we are creating an object in Earth class. So here, then we are calling Earth in Earth class. We are calling show method. So their white show will give us output Earth class, and then we are again calling get period from Earth class object, because we are creating object from Earth class. Then the output will also be 365.26.
Okay, just one little thing. So planet is a class or an interface?
Planet is interface.
Yeah. So can you see whether what we have just see the show method, Sumishta. The show method where we have overridden it inside the Earth class. What's happening? Check there.
Yeah, but both are default, right? Only first one is explicitly default, and in Earth I didn't mention anything, but that is also default, right? So in this same level.
So see.
So in interface, by interface, any method is a public method, right?
Yeah, exactly. See, yeah, thank you. Sumishta, see, if it is a class, right? If it is a class, public class planet, then whatever you said was exactly right. If you just make it public class planet, but since it is an interface, what's happening over here is, although we are not writing the access modifier, it is by default public.
Okay.
Okay. Now, since it is by default public, whenever you are overriding it in the class subclass, right? Or yeah, the class which implements planet interface, you should make it public explicitly.
Cannot reduce the visibility.
Otherwise, yeah, otherwise you are reducing the visibility. Why we are reducing the visibility? Because in a class, so let's write this in this way. See, in a class, if I write void fun, that means what I mean is implicitly, let me choose another color. So implicitly what I mean is default.
But in class it is private.
Not private. Yeah. So this is default.
Yes, sir.
In a class. But in interface, if I do not write anything, that means implicitly it is public. Okay. Now, one very important point is this default and this default are not the same thing. Right? So if I write in interface default void fun, that actually means public default void fun, like this. So interface, so what is happening? What is this default and what is this default? This default is a keyword specific to interface. Okay, I'm just writing in short. This default is access modifier, just like public. Just like public. So what's happening? Default, public, protected, private, these all are access modifier. Only inside interface, this is an exception, only inside interface when you write default, right? So that actually means you are making a default method. That means in an interface you are providing the body of the method, because in interface you can only have abstract method, right? So if if you want to have a method where you want to give the body explicitly, so then you have to write default in front of that method. But this default is not the access modifier. Access modifier is public. Access modifier is public. This default is just a keyword inside interface so as to to have a feature of implementing a method. Okay. So in all over Java, wherever you will see default, that means access modifier. Only inside interface, if you see default, that means it is a method whose body you are giving. Okay.
Means we are making it a concrete method.
You are making it a concrete method. Okay.
And if I just implement it in another class, override that method.
Yeah.
Okay, so then in that case, that is not going to make any difference, no?
That if you override it using public, it is obviously overriding, normal overriding.
Okay, huh?
It will be normal overriding. See, the point is that we are now at a, we discussed that default inside interface is not access modifier. Fine, I got it. Default inside interface means you are giving body. Other than interface, anywhere you use default, that means access modifier. Like public, private, protected, all of them are access modifier. Default is also access modifier. So this is clear. But if default inside interface is not an access modifier, right? So what is the access modifier of this method? That is public. So any method, whether abstract method, whether default method, or whether a static method, these three kind of method you can have in an interface: abstract, default, or static, right? So all these three kinds of method are implicitly public, and you have to keep them public only, right? If you do not write anything, in front of them, they will all be of public access modifier. Okay. Now what's happening over here, the problem is that since interface has only public methods, so when you are trying to override it and inside a class you are not giving any access modifier over here, now we know implicitly if it is a class, then access modifier is default. Here default means access modifier, not interface default. That please be clear with that point. So implicitly it is default. Now we know default is much more restricted than public, right? And that's why here it was public, but here it is default. So you are actually reducing the, increasing the restriction, right? And that's why This is not overriding. We discussed that whenever you are overriding, you can decrease the restriction, but you cannot increase the restriction. That is, in the superclass fun method, you can have, say, protected or something. Okay, you can have protected. We will discuss protected later again, but as of now, just think that protected is more restricted. In the child class, you can say public, or you can just keep it empty. Do not write anything. That actually means it is default, right? So you can have things like that. Right? So basically, if you keep it public, then also it is fine. That it is okay. You can. This is a valid override. But because you are reducing the restriction in the child class, but if you increase the restriction, then it is not overriding. Now here you are increasing the restriction, therefore it is not overriding.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Writing default, we are making it concrete. If somehow we are making it already concrete, then why do we mention this default?
Why do we? Yeah, default's main idea is we are making it concrete. That's what we want to indicate, that okay, if it is default, that means it is concrete. But see, I think I discussed this in one session, why the default methods were introduced in the first case in interface. So the idea is that initially interface before Java 8, I think, I'm not sure about the version, but I think before Java 8, the default, interface only had abstract methods. You cannot have any implemented method or concrete method inside an interface. But what happened is, I said no, that there are multiple interfaces which are provided to the programmer by the system. You do not define an interface. That interface has already been defined, and you can use the methods inside that interface by simply implementing that. Just like suppose objects, you all have overridden the equals method. So did you write the definition of equals method in object method? Object class, you did not do that. You are simply extending object class implicitly, and that's why you can use the equals method. So like that, you have many interfaces. We will discuss those interfaces in later parts, that where the interface is already a system interface and it has some methods which you can use by simply implementing that interface in your class, right? You can directly use those methods for applying some feature, for making some feature. What happened is, in these systems interfaces which are already there in Java, those interfaces which are provided to the programmer, some new features were added, some new functions were added. Now, if all the methods are abstract in an interface, the problem you will face is you have to define all the method or override all the method which are abstract in the interface. Now, suppose you do not want that feature, which is newly introduced. A new feature is introduced in interface, right? So feature means a method, a new method, abstract method is introduced in the interface, the newer interface, which is already there in Java. A new feature is there. But you do not want to use that. You are happy with the old interface which was there, right? So how will you bypass this situation? You will have to forcefully override that method in order to make the code work. Otherwise, it will give you compilation error. Right? Because you have to implement all the methods in an interface if it is abstract. So that's why the idea of this default method came. Say the programmers at Java, they thought, okay, we will give the default implementation of these methods. If someone wants to use that implementation, it is fine. If someone does not want to use and is happy with the previous version of interfaces, then he will not run into compilation error because these implementations are already given. So that was the idea of having default methods. But if you want to override those methods and use that your own implementation, then you are certainly welcome. You can just write public void show and override the methods. Got it? So that was the idea behind introducing default methods or concrete methods in interfaces.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, so Mr.
So, sir, here default void show will work like a method.
Yeah, it will work just like a method.
But we know interface does not contain any method in its body.
Yeah, that was the idea, right? That's what I told. That if you write default, then it will have you can write the implementation. But if you write abstract, then it is not so. And why default methods are introduced, that's just what I said. So you can just listen to it once again and it would be clear. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
So
Got it.
only point is all methods in interface are public if you do not write them also, right? Since they are public, if you are implementing an interface and you are trying to override that method which is there in the interface, you have to explicitly write public in front of your overriding method, right? Over here inside
Yes.
show. If you do not write anything in a class, it is default. In an interface, it is public.
Public.
So because in a class it is default by implicitly, therefore you are reducing the access scope or you are increasing the restriction. That's why it will give error. It will not override. Okay.
Yes,
so if you write p1.show, this is not a valid overriding. Okay. But if you write p1.get period, what happens in this case?
In this case, it will print 365.26 the string.
Yeah, there is another problem over here. See, 365.26 is get period definition is there inside the earth class.
Earth class.
But not in interface. Get period is not in interface. Since it is not in interface, it's not actually overriding in the other way also. Right? If it would have been there, then it would be an overriding, but here it is not overriding.
Yes, sir.
Right? So just if I simply introduce abstract void get period.
Get period.
Okay, so whatever, get period. If I write that, then it would work. Fine. So both of them will not work in the way expected. So if you see
Hello,
this,
sir.
yeah.
So without defining the abstract method of the get period, if I could have done the typecasting, then it would have worked.
Fine. Okay, great. Just make this thing.
Yes. Okay, sir.
Planet. Oh, there is one difference. That is interface, right? How can you define an object of interface?
But the class art, I can do it now. Art of P1.
Oh, acha. Yeah, that you can do.
Okay, sir.
That is fine. The reference, if you are changing, that is fine.
No, sir. I meant that if I write art in first bracket before P1 dot so, then that thing.
Okay, yeah. So reference type, you are trying to convert it into object type. I mean, explicitly typecast it, and then you are trying to call the yeah. But one thing, keep in mind that reference types can be typecasted, but objects cannot be typecasted. So P1 would work, but if you try to do this
only for reference, it would have worked.
Yeah. Planet New Earth. So this will not work.
Yes. Okay, sir.
So the two reasons are get period is not overridden, right? Therefore you cannot use it, and it would give unreachable, right? You will not be able to resolve the get period where it is, and show it is not. I mean, again, it is not overridden because you are not making public, and that's why it is not proper override. So both of them are erroneous. Okay, any doubt in this question? Okay, so I will proceed now. So please understand this concept that we discussed, this part, right? This part that the in interface, if you do not write, it is public, and interface default is not access modified default. Interface default means it's a keyword just to show that you are concretizing you are making the implementation of a method complete. That's it. But in classes, if you do not write whatever is in front of a method, that is implicitly default, right? And that default is actually the access modifier, just like private, public, and all. This default is not access modifier. This is access modifier. Okay. Here access modifier is public always.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So the other default that we don't specify, it is implicitly taken. So that I think we cannot even like explicitly
we cannot write.
We cannot write. Okay.
No,
yeah.
We cannot write.
Yeah, thank you.
If you write, it will give compilation error because system does not know about the default keyword outside interface. If you try to write default, it would think that you are trying to make an interface, but it is a class, so it will be confused.
Right. Sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the next question. Let me make it a little smaller. Yeah, this is fine. So explain what's happening. You can, I mean, one part of it you can just take hint from the previous discussion, that that reference type and all. But there is another thing going on over here. Can anyone tell?
May I, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So in the account class, we have not defined any non-parameterized constructor. I mean, like without parameters. So that is why we are not actually calling the parent super or anything like that. So therefore, the copy constructor, or in fact the other constructor also for savings account that is being initiated. So that is not actually going back to the account, because the default constructor is not present there. By default, I mean the non-parameterized one, without any parameters. That is why.
Yeah, so that is an error.
I hope it is clear. Yes.
Yeah, I got it. And another thing, what do you think about the get balance method? So just if we assume that constructors are properly defined, then what will happen in get balance and get pan? Will it work or will it not work?
The
Just
get balance will not work because the account 1 is referenced, account 2 is referenced from account.
And get pan will work?
Get pan, that is the question I will be asking you, that why get fan is working. Just because it is defined in the parent class, that's why.
See, yeah. Okay. So let's discuss this part first. We will come to the constructor part later. This it's easy part, the dynamic dispatch thing. See what we discussed. Whenever you will have to decide that whether the parent class version of method would be called or the child class version, the first thing you should see is whether it is overriding or not. So let's take the question for account 2 dot get balance. Let's check for get balance. Is get balance an overridden method or not? Let's check that. So we see that in the parent class get balance is not there, but only in child class get balance is there. That means get balance is not an overriding method, right? We are not going for overriding for get balance. Okay. So let's go to get pan. Now check get pan. Is get pan overriding? No. Get pan is only there in parent class and not there in child class. So that means we are not overriding get pan. So neither get pan nor get balance are we overriding. Therefore, whenever you are confirmed about it that it is not overriding, you should only see the reference type in order to decide that which version of the method would be called. If it is overriding, then you have to check the object type. If it is not overriding, always check the reference type. So we see that account ACC2 reference is of account class, right? And that's what we are using to call get balance and get pan. So ACC2 is for account class. So let's directly go to account class and check which method is there. So we see get pan is there, but there is no get balance. Since get balance is not there, it would be error, and get pan is there, so it would work. Okay. So that is the idea. And now the other point regarding constructor is, see, this is the same thing that in one practice of graded question, I don't know, forgot, so that was there. So here we are defining a constructor, right? There is a copy constructor. So there is a copy constructor. Now we know that when we do not define any constructor in a class, then the Java system internally provides us with a default constructor. Default constructor means a constructor of this form, which will have no argument, right? Whatever. But when we define any one of the constructor, maybe like this form, maybe a no argument constructor, which we define explicitly. This is implicit. This is implicitly given by the Java system. But if we define explicitly right? I mean, a no argument constructor, or maybe argumented constructor, whatever. Some arguments are there, right? Or maybe a copy constructor, right? When we define any kind of constructor, irrespective of the type, it will always hide the implicit constructor. Java will no more provide it. So even though you have defined a parameterized constructor, still the no argument constructor which was given by Java would be hidden. Even if you define just one copy constructor, this no argument constructor would be hidden. And not only that, if you define even a no argument constructor, then the implicit constructor, right, that gets hidden, and this constructor would be considered. Now this you will not run into a problem. This is fine when you define a no argument constructor, but the problem would occur when you take either this option 2 or option 3. And that's what is happening here. Since we have defined a copy constructor, it is hiding the implicit no argument constructor. And we know that when a child class object is created, the constructor call inside child class will implicitly call the superclass constructor. So it's like you are calling over here is just implicitly this is happening. You are not writing anything, means implicitly this is there, right? Even in this case, because there is another constructor, right? So this is the compiler is adding this part, this line of code, the compiler is adding over here at this point, okay? So now you are trying to call the superclasses no argument constructor or default constructor, but that is hidden because you have defined a copy constructor in the superclass, right? So this call would not be a valid call. It will not be able to find any method of this format where the constructor is having no argument. Okay, so that's why the constructors are not defined, and therefore you will not be able to create object. It would give you error. It would say that you cannot, I mean, constructor call not referenceable, something like that. Okay, so the only solution to that is you can do two things. The first thing is you can explicitly define an account class constructor over here, an empty constructor. Okay, you can do that. Or the other thing is you can explicitly call right here super over here. Just this was implicitly added by the compiler, right? Super. So now you explicitly write super in the bracket, you pass this constructor, the one which you have defined, that's format, right? So savings object you are taking, so just pass obj. Fine, here also pass. Okay, here we are not taking an object, right? So maybe here you have to think how you can do that. It's not possible. You have to define another parameterized in the superclass. Okay. Now just for sake of eliminating the compiler error, you can do something like this. But that is not logical. So yeah, but basically what we are trying to do is you have to explicitly call the superclass constructor. But if you do not define the explicit call inside the child class constructor, then it will call the no argument constructor, this one, this no argument constructor. Implicitly the compiler will add. And if it cannot find that, it would give error. That's why you are getting error. Okay, any doubt?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I have a question. So the account class, any instance of any object of account class we cannot create, right? Because of the fact that we have only defined the copy constructor.
Exactly.
So the first thing, I mean, like the initial object you need at least to proceed further, and that we cannot do, right?
You cannot create. This program is a dead end. It will never run.
This type of a question actually was
Was
also
there in your PQ.
Yeah, previous week. Yeah.
And it
I
was
recall that.
Exactly, and it was a multiple select question that. So the constructor thing, I mean, it is a bit more easier to, I mean, get the point that you cannot create a object because it will run into an error because the proper constructor is not there. But it takes a little bit time to think that you cannot create any object because the point that you just mentioned, that this program is a deadlock. It will never create any object because the first object itself would be hidden, which you need to pass inside the copy constructor. You
Right,
cannot
sir.
create it. Yeah. Okay, so you see that this code generates compilation error because the definition of appropriate constructor is missing. That is one point. The other point is this code generates compilation error because ECC2.getBalance could not be resolved. So please pay attention to all the options which would be there in the exam. It may seem that one option you have found and that's the reason, but there can be multiple other reasons also, right? So yeah, for MSQ questions, please be careful. Try to judge all the points that you get. Okay, I think last question. This I will not tell. Please tell me what's happening over here. Yeah, it would take some time. So yeah, if you can just start telling someone, that would be better.
Sir, should I like go from line by line or something
No,
like that?
just tell me what's happening. I mean, whatever you prefer. I would anyway explain it later. So yeah.
Sir, then in the main function, can you just scroll down?
Yeah.
Sir, in the
is it still visible? Then I would make it smaller.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, sir, you can make it.
Okay.
Sir, in the main function, there is a string buffer being declared, and that buffer is being passed to the new restaurant object, like the constructor of it. So in that new restaurant constructor, the array is assigned to ARR, the string ARR.
Yeah.
And then then inside that object, a new producer object is being created, subclass, through that object, and then produce is called. So that produce actually first checks if buffer is null. It's not null because of the earlier assignment. Then to that buffer, a new string is assigned, which is separate from the older string. So in that one, item is there's an assignment where buffer is assigned item plus I+1 to all the elements, 5 elements. And then after that, it prints producer has finished producing.
Okay.
And then a new consumer with is created, object is created. And there is no there is only the default constructor, and then dot consume dot buffer is passed. That is the newly created buffer, that string 5.
Yeah.
So in that one, we set all of it null, and then a new separate producer or object is created, and in the constructor the buffer is set to array, and then produce is called. So again, once again, the buffer 0 is equal to null isn't found, like it is not triggered. So again the process will repeat, and then the producer has finished producing will be printed. So again, only producer has finished printing will be printed, and this program won't terminate. That's my conclusion that I have.
Exactly. So only producer has finished would be printed, but consumer has finished would never be printed, right? Is it correct? Is it did I get your point correctly? Hello, I think you are on mute. Can you? Who was that actually? Who answered that? Can you just tell that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So consumer has finished would not be printed, right? Or will it be?
Yeah,
printed?
consumer would not be printed because it will not because every time a new object is created instead of the original ARR object.
Yeah, exactly. See, so yeah, thank you. That's exactly correct, and that's what's happening over here. See, the idea is this is callback. I mean, the way we do callback, that is depicted over here. But the only difference in this program code is we are not doing it object wise. We are not passing the object. Yeah, callback means what? One object will call another object. I mean, another class's one method, and then it will again come back to that specific object. The callback will happen for that specific object only, right? For the another class. So if I try to write it over here, ideally when you are implementing a callback, so that means what? That means some object of one class was there, object one. It is calling method one of another class, right? So all of this is taking place inside class 2, right? All of this is taking place inside class 2. You have class 1 here, right? You have method 1 here. You have method 1 here. And yeah, after whatever you need to do in method 1 you did, then what you will do is you are trying to again go back to this method, right, where method 1 was called. So let me just make it more proper, just a second. So maybe this is another method, method 2, right? Whatever work you did, then you called object 1 dot method 1, and now you want to go back to the method 2 inside this class, right? Let's assume, yeah. So basically this is your idea. From this method I'm going to this method, right? Now I'm executing whatever is there. After that I will come back to this method again, right? So that's my idea. That's why we are calling back. We are calling back. But the problem over here is we are calling this method 1's version for object 1 dot method 1, right? For object 1 of class 1, we are calling the method 1, right? And this call is made inside an instance method called method 2. That means all of this is applicable for another object of class 2, which we can call as object 2, right? Object 2, for which this is happening. So we will actually start object 2 dot method 2. This would be there inside your main method. Okay. So then it will go to method 2 and then it is happening. But the problem over here is when we are calling back to it over here, I need an object, right? I cannot directly call because method 2 is not static. I need an object over here. So if I create a new object, new class 2, and then I write dot method 2, this is what we have done in this code. That actually means you are creating a new object. And for that new object, you are calling method 2. But that was not your idea. Method 1 was called by this object, right? Object 2 dot method 2, and inside that it was called method 1. So that means this execution of this method 1 is related to this object. And you are trying to call back means you should go back to the context of this object, not any new object that you are creating, right? So always callback happens with respect to passing objects and calling the context of that object on. And that's why you see that we have in the code, if you see where Cyrus dot callback, he is using this pointer to pass it. Okay, but here what's happening in this code is Oh, it was here only. So here what's happening is, as we are mainly creating an inner class object over here, right? Inner class object has been created. Inner class is this producer class. This is the producer class, right? Which is an inner class. Now we told you that inner class object you cannot create directly. You have to create the inner class object something like this. This outer class name dot inner class name, and you can only do that if it is public. If it is private, then you cannot do even like this. Then you can write your whatever object name equal to, then you can write new outer class object you have to create, right? Because inner class is a property of outer class, so you cannot create outer class without using the inner class. That's what the idea of composition was, right? We discussed about composition and aggregation and the difference between them. So here you need the existence of the outer class in order to have the inner class. Then we'll write dot, then you will write new, and finally your producer, right? Yeah. So this is the syntax of having a inner class object. So we are simply doing that over here, right? Here only we are not using new directly because the student objects are created in this line. So we can directly use obj dot. So that is fine. And then we are calling p dot produce. So the idea of this code was that this produce method would make this thing, right? You will see this array, right? Just ignore this part as of now. Right? So what the produce method would do, it would just allocate string new 5. I mean, in the buffer, it will allocate space for 5 cells. It would write this I+1 item in each of them. So the first cell in the array would store item 1, the second cell would store item 2, whatever, like that, right? The string item 1, item 2 would be stored in the cells, right? And then finally, once it has stored all the 5 cells, right, it would then just print that I have finished producing. Initially the array was null, so so I'm making it 5. I mean, I'm allocating the new 5 cells, and now I am making it item 1, item 2, item 5, and now I'm calling the consumer to consume this method, whatever I have created. So I have created the buffer in which I have made item 1, item 2, item 5, dot dot dot, right? Now I am passing this buffer to the consumer method to consume that. Now in consumer method, we are simply accepting this, I mean that buffer, okay, using a new method, new consumer. And inside this buffer, what we are doing is we are simply making each buffer as none. That is something like you are consuming the items. So item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5 was there. You are replacing that with none, just like that. The problem is in this statement. See, the point that we just discussed, we are passing a new producer object to call back to the previous method. This method, this is the call, I mean calling back, right? Because we came to the consume method, because the consume method was called inside the produce method, right? Inside the produce method, consume was called. So after ideally I finish eating, or I mean consuming, I should go back to the consume method. So that's why, sorry, I should go back to the produce method over here. But this going back should be with respect to that particular object who called me. Called me means the consume method. But you see, we are not passing any object reference to the consume method. And here we are simply making another object of produce and trying to make the callback, right? So this is a totally new object. This is not the object for which the consume method was first created. This was a different object for which it was working. Okay. Now when I come to this produce method, we see that buffer 0 equal to none. So what's happening in this statement over here, you see, here we set buffer equal to null. So buffer was 0, buffer 0 was equal to null. That is fine. But this buffer 0 is equal to null for the object which I used to pass it to the consume method, right? But here we are making a new object. Whenever we are creating a new object, then what's happening is the ARR equal to A would happen, right? Because the constructor would be called. And you see in ARR equal to A, the buffer which are passing as reference, you will see that item 0 is the first element, right? So this buffer is not null. This buffer is for the new object. When I'm calling back, when I'm going back over here, I'm calling back, this buffer is for the new object, for this object, right? Yeah, for this object, not for the object with using which consume method was called. Therefore, this buffer 0 is not null. Okay, and that's why, since it is not null, this will not be executed, and you will again come back over here, and for this object you will again allocate the string buffer, and I mean you will continue like that, and again come back to this method, and every time you go back, this buffer would be for the new object and not for the object for which you called the consume method, right? It is not the same producer who called the same consumer. It is a new, you as a producer are producing something, giving it to a particular consumer. Now once the consumer finishes consuming, he should or she should call the same producer back, right? That okay, I have finished consuming whatever you have given. But here what's happening is the one producer is creating and then producing and giving the consumer to eat it. The consumer is consuming it, and then it is calling a new producer. The new producer has no idea what is the status of the buffer. So it is simply creating the buffer from start using the constructor, and it is not null. So this will not be executed, and that's why this line would never be printed. Again, you are going back over here and you do it like. So this is a callback, but not proper callback, because this is you are not calling back to the same object. So ideally, if we run this method, it will run into as I don't know, I did not observe your name, sorry for that. So if you simply run this method, you will see that this would run for eternity. It would until and unless it goes to the stack overflow error. So it will just print infinite times theoretically. This statement, the producer has finished producing, because consumer has finished consuming, will never be printed, because this buffer is buffer for the new object that you are creating and not for the object for which the buffer was actually made null.
So if there is a non-static attribute, even if it's a reference type object, but still there will be copies of it for different objects. So changing the reference variable of one object of the reference variable of one object won't change the same for the second object.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's the idea. So basically, this is testing the week 1 concept by using a week 4 concept. That's it. I mean, by using this callback and all, we are simply checking the basic idea that you have different instance variable for each instance. I mean, the copies are different.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So after the line 34, new producer dot produce, the line 34.
Line 34, 30, yeah, new producer dot produce.
The constructor of restaurant is not again beginning just because the producer class is inside the restaurant class.
So yeah, consumer class is inside restaurant class, right? So you can directly call that. I mean, producer is also inside restaurant, consumer is also inside restaurant.
I was asking that why is ARR not equals to empty array?
Yeah, why ARR is not equal? That is the point, right? Empty array means
Why after I am calling the 34 line, it is again constructing the producer. So okay, it is not inheriting, it is just an inner class, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. ARR is an inner, I mean, producer is an inner class, right? Now we know that inner class can access all the members and methods of outer class. So here ARR means this ARR.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and this ARR has already been set to this buffer, right?
Yes, sir.
You see that here restaurant object was created now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now my question is what to do to make it work like the way it should, that the producer will produce, the consumer will consume, and then it will come back to the producer again that, okay, I have finished consuming. That is, I want the output, producer has finished producing, consumer has finished consuming, and then the program should stop. That is ideally a proper callback. What to do?
So when I'm, can I answer, sir?
Please go ahead.
No, so when I am calling the new consumer.consume, I also have to pass the reference to the object, a producer object with which I'm calling this.
Okay. Fine.
Okay, so when the consume method is finally over.
Just a second.
Okay.
Just a second. Let us go one by one. Producer. Let us call it P. Right. And yeah, then
I have to call p.produce. New last in the last line, new producer.produce. We have to replace that with p.produce.
Yeah, and also we have to write p.buffer, right?
Yes, yes.
Then we have to write.
Ideally, I should get another new method for getting the buffer for p. I mean, access method for getting the buffer. But this will also work.
So that's the only change that you have to make. And you see the code is working. The only, so there are two very important points that I wanted to highlight in this code. The first point is that instance variable, that basic thing that, for instance, all the data as non-static members of a class, it would be different for the version of it would be different for all the objects. Each object has its own copy of the non-static members, but for static member it is same. That is one important point. Second important point is callback is meaningless if you are not passing the references, because you are not calling back to the same person who called you. You are calling back to just another person of the same class. I mean, not person, but object, right? So this is very important. When mainly you will use callback in implementing locks. You will use callback in implementing various tokenizing schemes. In networks it is used, in many other computer applications it is used, right? So all of the places, in timers, sir has discussed the timers application, right? So all of these applications, real life application, if you work in Java in real life application and you have to use callback explicitly, very much, then what happens is you have to keep this thing in mind. You call always the same object. The callback should happen for the context of the same object. Otherwise it is not callback at all. Okay, so simply passing the reference works fine. The thing that we expected, that's happening. Okay, and yeah, again, if you do it in a multi-threaded environment, then you will see this is working wonders. I mean, now it seems just simply 2 lines of code, but if you run it in multi-threaded environment, you will see 3 producers are finishing and then 1 consumer is finishing. Something arbitrary fashion would happen. But if you write in proper locking fashion like this, you pass the object and then again like this, the code that we have now, right? Something like that. If you have with minor changes, but the core concept remains same. If you have it like this, then you will see that it's printing producer has finished producing, consumer has finished consuming. Then again producer has finished producing, then consumer has finished consuming. Otherwise, you will see 3 producer has finished producing, then 1 consumer has finished consuming. Arbitrarily, it can happen. It may happen if you do not pass the references properly. Okay. Yeah. So that was the basic idea. I think that was the last question also. And is that what would be the output? It's none of the above. Because as I don't know who said the answer in the first place. He explained nicely. Thanks. So that I mean, so he said, yeah. So what's your name? Can you tell?
Rahul.
Sorry, I could not get you.
Rahul.
Okay. Yeah.
My profile is Lighting Employee.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so thanks for your explanation. So yeah, so as he said properly that the output would be, and we also showed that, right? Output is this. Okay, you made the changes anyways. Yeah. The output is you will simply run into an infinite loop where producer has finished producing would be printed continuously, because this buffer is the not the buffer for the same instance. Okay. So thanks all. Hope that
Hello,
would
sir.
be, yeah.
Sir, one doubt. Can you discuss one question from activity?
Yeah.
So activity 3.6, question number 2.
Yeah, let me just see it.
Yes, sir.
Activity 3.6, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got it. Just a second, I'm sharing. This question, right, Sumishta?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Sir,
what is
why
it?
it's throw
Yeah.
an error?
Yeah, let me
Can't
just see it.
understand.
Public class A. New B, okay. B's object is created, then passing in the reference of OB, and then I'm calling OB.show, so it should go to the B type object and run the show method. It is public class, public void show. We are not making anything. This should work. Let me just see it.
Okay.
I've pasted the YouTube link. This is discussed.
Oh.
Sir, it would be better if you discuss it in small.
Yeah, just a second. I'm just trying it.
Okay.
So in your PDF, it is in the B class, it is public, but in the portal, it is only void.
Oh, void. Acha, void, right. So, Sumishta, can you confirm that if you are asking about void or public, there may be some changes in the PDF. That's okay. So,
Yes,
see, this code is perfectly fine. This code will not give you any error. But if you do not write this public now, then again we are going back to that same concept that we discussed today. That if you do not write anything, access modifier in front of any method in a class, it is implicitly default, exactly. But here you have made it public, same thing. Interface, this is implicit, but in class this is you are writing public. So if it is default, it would not allow.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay, same thing. But particularly this code which I have in front now, so that is okay. That would work.
No, sir. In my portal, it's part show just under class B.
Yeah.
And sir, once more, 4.2, question number 7. Activity 4.2.
Okay. Marker interface, okay.
Yes. So, sir, this you discussed today, it may contain.
Yeah, so marker interface, I think we discussed in, I don't know, previous session. Yeah, most probably in previous session I discussed in some detail, but not the exact marker interface. But the idea for marker interface is discussed in previous session. You can check that.
Okay, sir. I will check.
Yeah, and I mean, no coding or conceptual questions would be coming from marker interface. If it comes, then it would be some direct question like that. Okay, so
Okay.
even if you do not understand it properly, it is fine. But since we have discussed interface, now, I think it would be better if you go through the previous live session. There we have discussed the idea of marker interface and why it is important. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Okay, fine. So any more question? Anything?
No, sir. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. So thank you all. We will end the session today. Thanks and all the best for your exams.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have one session again on Saturday.
Yeah, that would be most probably a revision session kind of thing. And we have not decided it, but yeah, it would be revision session, that is for sure. And for week 5 questions, most probably we will have another extra session for discussing week 5 questions.
Thank you, sir. Good day.
Yeah, good day.